Hi, BookTube. It's Gina, and it is a glorious afternoon here in the Pacific Northwest, and I thought I would come to you and talk about spoilers. I was tagged in the spoiler tag by a couple people, Book Buds, who's a fun duo that does book reviews and book skits, and Melissa Firman, who's a booktuber that does sort of chatty videos like I do. And they both tagged me in the spoiler tag, and I've been sort of noodling on this and not quite sure how to approach it. And so I thought I would do a spoiler tag via a discussion about Susanna Clarke's Piranesi, which I just finished. So this tag was created by Gunpowder Fiction and Plot, and I'm going to go through the questions and I'm going to sort of chat about this as I go. So question number 1 is, what do you consider a spoiler? And I'm probably a little bit different in this area because to me, spoilers are not so much who's the murderer or what's the final scene. Everybody knows you're not supposed to tell what the murderer is. What I see more as spoilers is the nuanced things, and it really depends on the genre, but Kelly at Books I'm Not Reading gave me a wonderful gift during one of her videos. She was talking about Sarah Waters' Fingersmith, and she said, just if you have this on your shelves, go pick it up, read it. Don't read the dust jacket, don't read the back of the book, just read it. And I think those kinds of books and this kind of book are so much more enjoyable for me if you don't really know much about it going into it. So I think spoilers are more nuanced than just who is the murderer, because I like to go into books cold, and that is actually a question which we will get to. Question number 2 is, does the genre you're reading impact what you consider to be a spoiler? And it does, because I think, like I said, I think more books like this, Sarah Waters, this one, this Fantasy Tigana by Guy Gavriel Kay, these kinds of books, honestly, that unfold in a really beautiful and rich way. I think it's so much fun to go into those without knowing anything. So I'm going to say yes to that question. Question number 3 is, all the best bits are in the trailer. Sometimes a synopsis can be too detailed. Do you research books prior to reading them, or do you go in blind? And I like to go in blind. I love like this. Again, I knew I wanted to read this. I didn't know much about it. I had heard it was sort of a fantasy. I didn't read the dust jacket. I didn't read the description. I didn't look at any kind of, oops, sure, my note just, whoop, there we go. Sorry about that. I wanted to go in cold. I didn't want to know anything about it. And that's my preference, really. I like to get a sense for a book. If it's something I think I will like, somebody that I admire recommends it or talks about it, but I don't need to know a synopsis. I don't need to know the plot necessarily. I prefer to just have a vague sense or not know anything. So I think this is a perfect example of that. Going into this book not knowing anything about it was such a wonderful experience. I just was able to settle into it, to be surprised, to be confused, and then to slowly kind of start to get glimmers of what was happening. And it was just fantastic. Question number 4 is, sometimes the introduction or translator's notes can spoil the ending, especially for classics. I never read the introduction. I always just skip right over it. I'll go back to it and read it afterwards to see if they had some insights that I hadn't thought of, or descriptions or things like that maybe I hadn't paid attention to, but I always skip that. Name a time somebody spoiled a novel for you. I can't think of a time when somebody spoiled. I did have in a bookstore one year, this was years ago when one of the new Star Trek movies came out. I heard two kids talking and they spoiled the ending. That broke my heart because I was so excited about that Star Wars movie. But I don't think I've ever had that happen with a book. Have you ever spoiled a novel for somebody else? I don't think so. I'm going to have to say no. And along those lines, I'm going to give you a great gift, and I'm going to say read Piranesi. Do not look at the back. Do not read the dust jacket. Just go into it cold, and you will not regret it. This book was one of those books for me where within the first few pages, the hair on the back of my neck was standing up, and I knew I was going to love it. And sometimes that lets you down. This did not let me down. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. I tore through it. I'm going to need to read it again because the first half, just like I said, it unfolds really sort of like a flower, and you start out really not knowing what's going on. It seems a little fantastical, and the narrator, when it starts, is absolutely certain of what's happening. There's no doubt of what's going on. And then as you weave your way through the narrative, you start to see the little things that are happening, and it comes together in an absolutely glorious way. So I will absolutely recommend this book. I'm going to have to read it again because I want to be able to savor it a little more slowly, because I really did tear right through it really quickly, and read it in one sitting. So back to the tag. Question number 7. If spoilers ruin novels, are there some authors or genres you can't reread? And I would say no. So it's really interesting, actually. Some mysteries, like Agatha Christie, I almost can't even remember who the murderer is in a lot of those books. So even though I've read them, I can reread them, and I don't find the murder mystery as much of a spoiler as I do the unfolding of a slow and beautiful narrative. So I'm probably a little bit different in that way. And question number 8 is, when reviewing, are you spoiler free? Does this limit your ability to discuss? And yes, I am spoiler free. I just reviewed Piranesi for you, and you have no idea what I'm talking about. So it does limit my ability to discuss in such a way that I absolutely say nothing about it. But I think in this case, maybe I will go into more detail about it at some point, because I think it is a really rich book for discussion. But it is just it's just fantastic. So I absolutely love this book. I would love it if anybody wants to talk about it, or pop some comments down below. Spoiler free, of course. Don't put any spoilers in the comments. But thanks so much for joining me today for a quick discussion of Piranesi and my thoughts on the spoiler tag. Thanks, BookTube.